What's up, everybody? Back again on Locked On ACC. Thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. Make sure you check out all of the podcasts here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I've got AJ Black from Locked On Boston College joining me for this next half of the show. We're going to talk about some great things when it comes to football, some final grades for teams as we have some people get better. We have some people say the same. Might have some people get worse. Who knows? But I'm glad we have AJ here to also talk about Senior Bowl. Sam Howell decided he's going to take his talents there, as well as Kenny Pickett. So maybe have the conversation around some of our good quarterbacks that will be leaving us this coming season. AJ, thank you so much for joining the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on. This is a good respite from all the nonsense that's going on in the world right now. Talk a little bit about some sports and not think about everything else.
To say the least. Oh my goodness. Now we know that ACC had a solid, maybe less than stellar showing when it came to bowl games, but that didn't really, speak to what kind of decent season I think a lot of teams had overall. So I want to hear from you. That we've talked about power rankings all year, but give me some final grades from the top three teams and then some of the bottom half teams here as we go over here on today's show.
So two teams for me get an A+. And they're the two teams in the ACC championship, and that's Wake Forest and Pitt.
Fair.
And I am a Pitt believer now. Pat Narduzzi's he's got me sold. I love the way that team is formed. And heck, I look at what I predicted from them at the beginning of the year, the expectations I had is just another year for basically the entire Coastal to be kind of just that middling. You got a whole bunch of 7-5 teams. Who's going to win it? You got Pitt out there. They look like the class of the ACC. And what impresses me the most is they're setting themselves up again next year with Keaton Slovis. They got, and I'm not even going to try to say his name because I don't have it in front of me, but the wide receiver from Akron that's going to go, opposite Jordan Addison. They're setting themselves up for a long string of success. And 2021 was the perfect stepping stone for them to really set that up. And if Slovis can be that guy, look out for Pitt for a couple of years. And we'll be looking back at 2021 going, look, that was the year Pitt became an ACC contender year and one of the powerhouses in the conference.
Absolutely. Talking about a reload for sure. And I think it's really funny. I saw this TikTok today or it was on Twitter. This guy was saying that all quarterbacks in the transfer portal are following their girlfriends who play athletics in like the same state. And so Slovis has a girlfriend who plays soccer, I believe, at Pitt. So it was like, that's why he transferred over there. So I'm just saying, ladies, we have a lot more power than we think, when it comes to where guys are going to end up playing their sports. Just saying.
I heard buzz about that, and with Phil Dracovic when he transferred here. I heard there was buzz about that too, and I didn't know exactly. I forget. I heard that somewhere that was a piece, but I can't say that that's true or not. But
well, there you go. You never know here. But I will say, I think it is very telling of Pitt to kind of be under the radar this season. A lot of talk was about Miami and Carolina, and they, ended up not being the teams that we thought. But of course, it was leave it to Kenny Pickett having a stellar performance, a stellar season for him to come back for a senior year and really take over, as well as Jordan Addison being the Blitnikoff Award winner. The fact that he's coming back, I know there's still kind of questions out there whether it's definitive or not, but I think it's really awesome to see how they really, took the Coastal and ran with that thing. But on the flip side, as you mentioned, Wake Forest, a team nobody had being in their top, 5 really when it came to teams, despite the fact that they had all the returning people. We talk about, senior leadership so much in basketball, but there was a lot to say for football in this regard. The Demon Deacons, they certainly showed up. And now we have competition in the Atlantic, which we haven't seen for quite some time, that Clemson dominated. So I think it's fun for me personally. I don't know for you, being an Atlantic Division guy, it has to be more enjoyable to see more teams kind of compete as they get towards the end of the season.
Oh, absolutely. To watch Clemson just dominate a conference gets boring after a while. Just watching them run steamroll over everyone. To have other teams in the conference that can battle them, I think says a lot to the power of the conference. And to look ahead at next year, I said this on last week's episode, that you could make an argument looking at just any of the teams in the Atlantic, other than probably Syracuse, that any of those teams could win the Atlantic next year. Yeah, because of they have all, some of the best quarterbacks in the country. Right. And that I think that renaissance started with Wake Forest because, again, you look at where we thought this season was going to go. All the talk was on DJ, on Phil Dracovic, and on Sam Howell. Sam Hartman was an afterthought.
He
And
was.
he was not one of those quarterbacks that anyone talked about, and no one talked about A.T. Perry at all. And he became, I mean, you talked about Jordan Addison just a second ago as one of the best wide receivers. A.T. Perry's right underneath him.
Yeah.
And that program, again, they're returning a ton of talent next year. Again, all the credit in the world to Wake Forest for putting together a team that is, again, built to win, and they're gonna be there again next year. And whether they can hold off Clemson, who knows what they're gonna look like, but I think they're gonna be a contender, and they're gonna be probably an easy preseason top 25 team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it makes it fun, certainly, but you also can't skip out on NC State with Devin
Oh
Leary. I
no,
think that's probably going to be the most pissed off team going into next year after how the Holiday Bowl went down. I think that's the team that's going to have just target tunnel vision. They know what they came in here for. Like, I feel bad for opponents next year having to play NC State, if I'm being honest.
totally. And they're my number 3 team on my improvement, like on my top grades. Like,
No
team that
doubt.
played very, very well, top to bottom. You look at Pitt, you look at Wake Forest, and they're superstars. And you could say the same for Devin Leary, but I don't see him like that. What I see on NC State is just solid to really good talent from, the starting free safety to the kicker. Like, they just are Dave Doran has done such a nice job of building a program that has talent everywhere, that they can absorb injuries, that they can build and add depth. And they just did an incredible job this year. So I think NC State would be my number 3. I almost put Clemson there because, honestly, even though they didn't reach their expectations,
They look shaky.
They did, but I thought they did a nice job by the end of the year getting themselves back to where they wanted to be in that. And I'm not sold on them next year because I'm not a big fan of what Dabo did with his coaching staff, but that's my personal opinion, and I'm wrong on everything. So but I'm going to go with NC State because they deserve the credit.
No doubt. And then, I think like when it ultimately comes to who does bad, of course, we never think there's horrible teams, but there are definitely teams that need improvement and things that they have to work on going into next season. So, AJ, I would love to hear what you feel like a couple of these teams need to get together when it comes to having a better program for next year.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm going to have to say right off the bat, I'm going to own it. I'm going to put Boston College there.
Okay.
I'm going to put them right there because I had said early on that they were going to be a 9-3 team, and they were definitely not. And, a lot of that was, I mean, people want to make excuses about everything, but you look at what they lost. You lose a franchise quarterback like that, and you don't have the depth behind him because all of the Adazio guys had fled. They're just young guys behind him, and Dennis Grosel, who's a walk-on.
Yeah.
Your expectations should be lowered. But it was a disappointing season. Just, being up front, that was a disappointing year for Boston College. To end it without a bowl game again, I feel like this team is cursed. They can't get they haven't had a bowl game in like 4. They had the one bowl game that they played was against Cincinnati 2 years ago when they had an interim head coach and they got and without AJ Dillon, and they got shellacked. And that was right when Cincinnati was about to just rocket ship,
Yeah.
So I think Boston College has to be up there. I was expecting a lot more out of them this year, and they're going to have to put up. This is going to be a big year for Jeff Hafley. Like, this is year 3. You got more of your guys there. I still believe in him wholeheartedly, and I think with a healthy Phil Jakovic. But look at that offensive line BC had, where you had 5 starters come back that played miserably at points. I couldn't believe how poorly some of those guys played. He did. They got beat up.
Hey, I'm not disagreeing with you one bit. Listen, you ain't got to talk to me about poor O-lines 1 second. I wholeheartedly feel.
So let's get into that then. So my number 2 is UNC, who broke my heart and my wallet betting on them every single time I touched that. And
AJ, I could have told you.
You did. You warned me over and over, Candace. And I didn't listen. I just kept going with my head, which was the stupidest thing I could have done.
You can't ever go with your head because logic will tell you on paper Carolina is supposed to be amazing because on paper they are amazing. But then when it comes to putting it on to the field, they seem to struggle just a little bit.
Yeah. And the power in the Carolina seems to be shifting to South Carolina at this point.
It was dicey over there in Charlotte. It was not great. It did not feel good watching how dominant South Carolina was towards North Carolina. But more than that, it was knowing that this was going to be Sam's last go. And of course, some of the front line is leaving. But the fact that none of the coaching staff is changing for real, there's not, extreme differences going into next year. It's okay, well, what are we doing here? Because if it's doing the same thing and expecting a different result, it's insanity to feel like we're going to have a decent squad. Like, okay, is Drake May going to be our leader? Is Jacoby Criswell? Are you looking into the transfer portal, trying to find a new quarterback? Like, maybe, maybe not. I don't know. It's just, I have my confidence is just low. Like, I don't feel high, don't feel low. I'm just I'm borderline indifferent. Like, of course I care. So I don't think I can ever get quite there, but it's getting close. Can't lie to you, AJ.
All right. I appreciate your comments on that. I like hearing from an insider's perspective on
Yeah.
And so my final one, I want to say right off the bat, I left out the teams that I had no expectations for and didn't do anything. Like Duke, I'm not gonna rag on Duke. Like we had no expectations going in this year, and they basically did what they expected to do. And Syracuse, I almost put them in my top ones because I thought they did better than I expected them to do at points.
This is true.
You know what I mean? So for disappointments, I had two teams, and I'm gonna end up going to the Coastal again. But it was between Louisville and Miami. Louisville, I mean, I see what Malik Cunningham can do, and I still can't believe that they play as poorly as they do. And I think I just don't understand. I honestly believe that they're one bad season away from Scott Satterfield being tossed.
Oh, for sure.
And I was talking to my friend Matt McGavick, who covers Louisville for SI. And I was like, is he like on the hot seat? And he's like, he's on lukewarm. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm just watching from afar, and I just see like all this drama around the program and like all the stuff that was going on with the AD and the president. It just seems like they're just a powder keg that just needs to explode and like reload again.
Oh, for sure.
So, but I'm not going to go with them. I'm going to go with Miami.
Okay.
Miami's going to win. Just because I expected and it's not on him because he got hurt. De'Aaron King to do much better than he did. I thought he would be like the guy that brought the U back. And I had said earlier on that I thought Manny Diaz would be the right guy. And I don't think he was the wrong guy, but man, it was a disappointing year just in general for that program. But add on whatever the hell that coaching search was, or whatever the way that they treated that whole situation was just a mess. Yeah. So Miami, just in general, the state of the program, they're going to be my number 3.
That's true. Now, I think Tyler Van Dyke is going to be a hell of a quarterback going into next season, and it'll be interesting to see how Cristobal utilizes him. But I agree. I think at the end of the day, for better or for worse, whatever you feel about Manny, how they handled that, the lack of professionalism. And I will say, it's like when the right people no longer want you, it's like no matter what you do, you're screwed, right? Like if there are certain people in place, the powers that be are over you. There is absolutely nothing you can do to fight for your case. The way they turned certain games around, they were actually in the hunt to even be a part of the Coastal for a little bit there towards the end, and it was all for naught at that point. And so I really agree, and I think that hopefully they can turn things around. I'm done saying the U's back. Same way I'm done saying DJ is going to have a breakout game for Clemson. Like there's just certain things I won't take into my arsenal going into next season. But what I will say is that there are definitely guys who are going to have great years as they head into the NFL. I want to talk a little bit about Senior Bowls, but first, if you guys haven't known by now, this is it, the putt to win the tournament. If you sink it, the championship is yours, but on your backswing, your hat falls over your eyes. Is this how you're running your business? Poor visibility because you're still relying on spreadsheets and outdated finance software. To see the full picture, you need to upgrade to NetSuite by Oracle. Over 28,000 businesses already use NetSuite for the new year. NetSuite has a new financing program for those ready to upgrade at netsuite.com. NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system to power your growth. With NetSuite, you can automate your processes and close your books in no time while staying ahead of your competition. Visit netsuite.com/LOCKED. That's locked. Head to netsuite.com/locked for this special one-of-a-kind financing offer on the #1 financial system for growing businesses. AJ Black here, Locked On Boston College host. He covers the Eagles from start to finish, noon to night. I'm telling you what, he has all the content when it comes to BC. So make sure you guys follow him on his handle below there on the screen if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're listening, you can follow him at AJ Black_BC. Now, guys, as we're going through the season, we're giving our grades out, but of course, there are guys who are taking their talents to the next level. We saw this great video from Sam Howell, Kenny Pickett. He was at the bowl game, but didn't participate, had a third-string quarterback in. That was very weird, but whatever. we'll let it go. I would love to know your thoughts on those two going into the Senior Bowl and just the competition around quarterbacks. Guys who are not necessarily your high big names. A lot of people are saying this is a slow quarterback year for whatever reason. I'm like, okay, I guess. But how are you feeling about Howell and Pickett, and do you feel like they're going to make a difference for teams next season as they play on Sundays?
So this is one of the weaker quarterback classes in a while. I mean,
Okay.
you look at who's available, and they're gonna have to prove it. And I think the Senior Bowl is going to be really important for Pickett and Howell to showcase what they can do, and
Right.
both in the practice and in the game itself, they can showcase how their decision making looks, how their accuracy looks, and that's going to be so important because when you look at where the NFL draft is this year, I think it's going to be really heavy on defensive players like Aiden Hutchinson from, Michigan, or Thibodeau from Oregon. There's going to be a lot of like defensive guys, I think, that are going to probably go early. So the quarterback position could go anywhere.
Yeah.
You look at who's available: Matt Corral from Ole Miss, or Malik Willis, or from Liberty, or Carson Strong from Nevada. Any of these guys could go first, including Howell and Pickett. So these games, these workouts are going to be so crucial for these kids because they're going to have NFL eyeballs on them through everything. And so it's a really high pressure situation. But I like, I look at what Howell can do, and I think he's just got a winning style to him.
For
and I see what Pickett can do. And he's got it. He's got it. And I think NFL teams that bypass those two are going to regret it, because I think both of those guys have a little special something that if they just look on tape and like, oh, his 2-step drop is, his 4-step drop, you're going to miss some of the intangible stuff that when it gets to game time in the NFL, those two guys, I think, have what it takes to win games. Yeah. And I know Howell didn't show it totally because his team was a kind of a mess around him, but you surround him with a good coach, hopefully not the Giants.
Let us pray.
I mean, that's the thing too, because you're going to have these guys go on to some bad teams.
Yeah.
And, but I think it's going to be a really, really important couple of weeks for these guys, going from the Senior Bowl to the workouts to the NFL Combine. But it's going to be fascinating because I could see both of those guys going as high as like 8 to 10 or as low as the bottom of the first round to second round. So it's so much fluctuation for those two guys. It's not like Trevor Lawrence last year where it's like Trevor Lawrence is number 1, Justin Fields is going to be number 2 or 3. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's going to be, it's a lot of fluidity here. And I think it's going to be fun for ACC fans to watch to see where they go.
Absolutely. I think Kenny had the advantage of having a really solid offensive line. So his decision making maybe was a little bit better, but then also he would have some bonehead moments, as every young quarterback does. But I think his experience is definitely going to be on his side. And I think Sam, if he gets a good offensive line behind him, if he gets an opportunity to go to a team and kind of work behind someone for a little bit, I think he might fare better. Because if he does go to the Giants, I know he can compete with Daniel Jones for a starting job. I'm just going to say that. And then I don't think Joe Judge is going to be here after this upcoming season, so he could have a whole different coach to be able to fly under. So I totally agree in that regard. But I think the way Sam put the team on his back, I know that they were only in a bowl because of Sam and how he used his legs. Hell, he was trying to be a running back for the majority of the season just based on what we saw there on the field. He wanted to do everything he could to give his team a chance, and now he'll be a part of an organization that hopefully won't be like the Jaguars, where you have Trevor Lawrence fighting for his life, just trying to do whatever he can.
I was just gonna say, as a Patriots fan, I got my first chance to watch Trevor Lawrence, and I hadn't seen him since he played BC. And whoa,
is it rough?
It's not on him. I mean, he had some bad passes on his own, but he had like 3 interceptions. It should have been like 6. And he was running for his life the entire game. And it was like, you see, just like you were just saying, like you see a good quarterback go to a team that's a mess, and you can see what happens to them.
Yeah.
Because Lawrence doesn't deserve that.
Right.
No
Listen,
quarterback does.
absolutely. I feel horrible for the fact that, as you want to get these high picks, of course, we talk about, money incentives and all that good stuff. But sometimes it really does fall for where you land and what organization you're a part of, because I think you don't want to be a part of foolishness. You definitely want to be a part of something that grows, and maybe getting your feet wet and having to fall behind somebody can ultimately benefit you, because it's not like Kenny's not used to having to wait his turn, or he's not used to having to struggle a little bit, find his way
Yep.
and mature. He's kind of into this, older man strength where he's growing into that. Sam Howell, he came in, he dominated from start to finish at his time at Carolina, but at the same time, he had a lot of growing pains when it came to his decision making. I know when I mentioned on the one side he tries to play hero, but on the other side he held that ball so damn long he was getting sawed up in the backfield. So I think it's just ultimately going to come down to what organizations need most in terms of whether you want someone who's mature, who can go right in, step in day one, or who might need a little more time.
Right. And, there's some really good organizations. Like, I mean, you just mentioned it, right? Like, look at what happened with Mac Jones. He goes, he falls a little bit in the draft, and he avoids those teams that are a bit of a mess. He gets to a team that is built for a rookie quarterback, and he's having a successful year. So it all kind of depends on where these teams fall. I mean, like the Carolina Panthers would be a perfect team. Like, they don't have a quarterback, and they've got some. I'm sorry.
They're so bad.
I
They're
didn't put
just
two and two
so
together
bad.
there, Candace. But
They're just so bad.
there's some good talent on that team.
Yeah.
And you'll probably have a new coach the next year, but I think there's some decent options out there, or it's just let them fall a little bit and get behind an Aaron Rodgers or
exactly.
another player. I don't think Pitt's probably the right answer. Pittsburgh is the right answer yet, but
Yeah, for sure.
because
I
Bill
think
Belichick is going to end up there. So
yeah, I feel like it's just we're so used to people wanting to be front and center facing. Like it's a lot to go from college to NFL. I don't care what anybody says, and it's okay to have to learn a little bit. And also, hell, being a number 2 quarterback has been very lucrative for certain guys in this league. What's my guy Chase? What is his last name? You know who I'm
Chase
talking about.
Daniels.
Chase Daniels has made himself good amount of money backing
Oh,
people up. So
yeah.
all that to say, Case Keenum, another example I have. People who make great money. I think of just backups talking about Jake Fromm. Like, don't be Jake, okay? Just don't be Jake. He's just horrible. But anyway, that's my Giants girl talking. Coming back to this, I say all that to say I'm excited to see, a lot of these guys here, as we're going to have, I'm sure, some pre-draft conversations, especially here from AJ, who talks a lot about our football stuff, because I know he ain't trying to talk about basketball, because woof. I'm sorry, AJ.
I'm sure you watched the BC game.
I'm sorry my guys
say,
did that to you.
Earl Grant had some good comments to say that the whole team had COVID, basically.
Okay.
Again. So like BC, everyone up here seems to have it, but he said the players were, symptomatic, and they played like 3 days. They started practicing like 2 days before the UNC game. And he was like, they were gassed. They were out of, they were just a mess. And
yeah,
I'm not making excuses for them, because they did, some of the, just a mess of a game. I was watching that
one
going,
that you just put away. Yeah, one you just certainly put away. Oh, well, guys, it's always a pleasure to have AJ on the show. We're going to give you more content. We've got a big game again coming up tomorrow. The ACC women's basketball, Carolina, the undefeated women's Tar Heels. They are facing NC State Wolfpack, number 5 team in the country. It will be very exciting, so make sure you guys are locked loaded there. We'll have all that recap for Friday's show, and then, we'll just keep things rolling as we preview for some really good weekend action when it comes to ACC hoops, so you don't want to miss it. AJ, can you please remind these folks where they can find you, follow your work?
Yeah, of course. I'm the editor and publisher of bcbulletin.com. You can check out my work there. Talk about recruiting, transfer portal, all sorts of good stuff. And we're covering the BC basketball team, and you can follow along with that. I'm also the host of Locked On Boston College. We've been doing a lot of football post analysis of the season. We just did awards. We did grades. We're doing a whole bunch of stuff on the site. So on the podcast. So check that out. And check me out on Twitter. My Twitter's been blowing up. We've been talking a lot about AJ Dillon with the Green Bay Packers. I don't know if did you get to see what he dressed like for his press conference?
Yeah, he's a pretty lit guy, if I will say so myself. I enjoy Dillon. I definitely do. I think anybody who can embrace the cold, I'm for that. I can't, but I'm here for anybody.
Just wore overalls in 8-degree weather. No shirt, nothing, just overalls.
Yeah, exactly.
I gotta get him on my show. I'm sure I could, though he has his own podcast now. But you can follow along with Twitter at AJ Black _BC. Thanks, Candace.
No doubt. Thanks for always coming on and always making it a great time. Guys, follow at Locked On ACC on Twitter if you want to hear more. And you can also get in on the betting action by following your boy Q and Lee Sterling for Locked On Bets. So many great podcasts here in the Locked On Podcast Network. You don't want to miss any content. Make sure you follow those guys for exclusive Locked On Bets. You can get bets of the day. They can make sure that you are locked and loaded. So come back tomorrow. We'll have some great content. And as always, for Candace Cooper and AJ Black, until next time.